The pandemic is accelerating with cases recorded in nearly every country. Dr. Tedros said it took 67 days from the first reported case to reach 100,000 confirmed cases, 11 days to confirm 200,000 cases, and just 4 days for the number of known cases to reach 300,000. Well, the death toll in Italy has declined for a second day. 602 people died in the last 24 hours, taking its total past 6,000. But Spain's death toll has risen by 460, a total of 2,182. And 64 more deaths have been reported in the US, bringing the death toll there to 483. Neve Barker begins our coverage with more on the situation across Europe.
In Italy's Lombardy region, cemeteries are struggling to keep up with the dead. On Monday, the death toll climbed to more than 6,000. But for the second straight day, the number of dead edged down and the rate of infection slowed. It's too early to say whether Italy's turned the tide on COVID-19, but the figures offer some hope that government measures are working. A day after Italy shut down all non-essential economic activity, now more restrictions, a ban on all internal travel. The virus has distorted everyday life. Buying food can take many hours. The UK's been watching developments in mainland Europe closely, steadily ramping up its readiness with the distribution of safety equipment. But while London landmarks are deserted, this was the scene on the city's underground. The advice is clear, and so are the risks. But crowds are still gathering at this East London market. While there's still demand, stallholders say they're left with little choice but to carry on selling, and shoppers keep on buying.
We're really worried. At the moment we are busy. To be honest with you, this is the busiest time for us because we're selling food. A lot of people stock. They stock and they buy extra from what they needed.
I had to buy food online so I wouldn't have to go out, but it was all like, you had to wait for like many weeks before they delivered the food.
The local authorities are painting footprints on the tarmac to help people maintain physical distance. But like many of the guidelines, nobody's paying any attention. This is one of the cheapest places in the area to buy food. Shutting it down could have dire consequences on people's lives and livelihoods. It is a difficult decision to make. But every infected person runs the risk of infecting several others. The domino effect could be catastrophic. The British government's published emergency legislation, including powers to detain anyone they suspect of being infected with COVID-19. It's also now warning of an Italy-style lockdown if orders aren't followed. The war on coronavirus is intensifying. These patients from the island of Corsica are being treated on a French Navy helicopter carrier. The island's hospitals are overwhelmed. The streets of the German capital Berlin are also empty, and the country's Chancellor Angela Merkel forced to quarantine. But there's a glimmer of hope. New data suggests the spread of the virus is slowing. Despite a high infection rate, there are relatively few deaths in Germany. The country was quick to introduce widespread virus testing.
One core element is the ability to keep track of contacts. The quarantine of contacts are kept for 14 days, and the isolation of infected people. These measures must be kept up and strictly adhered to for the coming weeks and months. They are important and will remain important.
2 weeks into its lockdown, Spain is now considering extending it further. Country after country, governments are controlling the lives of citizens like never before. The coronavirus has pushed a continent into confinement. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera, London.
And let's talk about Italy and bring in Seema Gupta. She's a journalist based in Rome. She's joining us via Skype. Thanks very much for your time with us on Al Jazeera. So as we're reporting, the death toll in Italy has now declined for a second day. Is the feeling there that the trajectory is heading in the right direction, or is it too early for optimism?
Well, what the officials are saying is that, yes, this is a slightly positive sign, but they don't want to commit to anything just yet. They can't say it's a trend. It's just 2 days, but 2 days where you've seen a drop in the number of deaths and the number of infections. The numbers, though, are still immense. I mean, if you're talking about 601 people who have died with the virus in the space of a day, and 3,780 people being tested positive, an additional number. But it is a drop in 2 days in a row. So what they're saying is, it's a good sign, but do not let your guard down. Now more than ever, everyone needs to practice and their social distancing and play their part in order to make sure that the trend goes downwards and continues to drop in the number of infections. They say in particular, one has to look at the people who are currently tested positive but are at home in self-isolation because they either have very mild symptoms or no symptoms at all, and that's some 26,000 people, and they have contact with their families in their homes. They're saying they should try to isolate themselves even from their families in their homes, and they're even calling on tech companies here in Italy to perhaps look into developing some kind of software in order to track these people to ensure that they don't further infect others. Of course, it's a question of
responding
liberty.
to the stricter measures, right? And how are people responding to the stricter measures announced by the government and the government's request for people to stay at home?
Well, if you look at Sunday, we saw 10,000 violations of the lockdown measures. That said, though, I think most people do realize that they have to stick to this in order to limit the spread of the disease. But perhaps some older people who are more used to their habits may not understand the danger of going out. Others, I think that they can move whether they are going to visit a family member. So there is still an element of confusion, an element of people who don't realize the danger of going out. And so that's why the authorities have put in place these stricter measures where you cannot move from one municipality to the other. All businesses are shut down and factories are shut down that are non-essential. That said, though, some of the other factories that are still currently in production, like those of the metal workers, some of these unions of these metal workers are threatening to strike because they say it's unfair that they're being forced to still go to work because they are concerned about their health as well.
Right. And okay, I understand what you're saying about the government and officials being cautious about these numbers and the perhaps a downward trajectory that Italy could be witnessing. But what about the people? I mean, do you think this gives them any comfort at all?
I think it definitely is comfort in the sense that every day you see the numbers increasing, and these are massive numbers. You're talking in the hundreds, and it's affecting particularly the elderly in society, the most fragile members in the society. So of course it was a real blow to the society, blow to Italians, that we saw these massive figures. But the fact that we're seeing them go down, yes, I think there's a semblance of hope, but one must not forget we're still talking about 601 people in the space of 24 hours. It's an immense number. They feel that the reason why it's going down is because of those initial lockdown measures put in place in the beginning of March. But they have to see a greater impact in the next coming days, which is why they're telling people not to let their guard down.